Hi everybody, Dr. Lisa Erickson here. Today we're going to discuss hand putty. Hand putty is a climber's best friend, not only because we can use it for strength training, but we can also use it to strengthen up the front of our hand, the back of our hand, and between the fingers. So hand putty is not only good for when you're bored and fiddling with things, but it also provides some real benefits. So let's discuss this. The first exercise I'd like to show you with the hand putty is first just warming it up. So we're just going to do some can opener twists, and we're just going to take that putty and rotate it. And part of this is cheating to help warm that putty up. The warmer it is, the softer it is. So if you're having trouble with your putty because it is too hard and irritating your body and not helping, then either one, you're doing too aggressive of work with putty, so we might move you down to like a hand sponge instead, or you just have the wrong type of putty and your putty's too aggressive. Another way to cheat is if you have too much putty and it's too aggressive. If you rip your putty in half, whoa, do not give this to kids to play with, because I had putty stuck in the carpet, they were putting it in my plants. Definitely not a good way to keep the kids entertained when you're working on the parents. So I ripped my putty in half, have half the size, and now we're doing twists. If you try that out, it is half as difficult as with a full amount of putty. So can opener twists are great. Now we can take our putty, and people very rarely will strengthen up the palm. So we can actually take that putty and we can squeeze it between the mound of our big thumb and the opposing hand in here. Really quite important for stabilizing the hand while you're climbing. So what we notice in climbers is there's just no hand strength. The distal finger is strong, but everything else is weak. So that's how, well, weak in comparison. So that is how the putty can really come in handy. So taking it and just squeezing that together. So all we're doing is we're squeezing one side of the hand against the other and just squeezing the putty between those guys. You might notice that you start wearing out really quickly and cheating with the fingers if you have any weakness in that area. So I definitely need a lot of work on this. So there's one putty exercise, is just pinching the opposing hands together. The next one, we're just going to take it and we're just going to just do the general squeeze. I think this is the one everyone thinks about when they think of putty, is just squeezing the tar out of it, so to speak. And it works well, but you're doing that all day long while you're climbing, so that is not as beneficial as these other little ones. Another one we can do, if you really want to work the crimp and you don't have a hangboard, is just getting in there and just squeezing it between the distal finger. So we're mostly working these guys. Now keep in mind, this is working on your strength. So if you're a climber and all you do is hangboard and you're working the distal finger all day long, you may be working on your strengths when we need to work on your weakness, which is why I like all these other little accessory putty exercises. So we've done that. Now let's tear off another little dollop and go into, so we have a little coin-sized bit of our putty. So now we're going to take it and we're just going to squeeze it between our fingers. I guess my opinion on this one is this is one of the most beneficial exercises with the putty, just because we very rarely do any strengthening of pulling the fingers together and stabilizing between these joints. And by squeezing the putty between the fingers, we're really providing some strengthening and some stability to the hand, which we really, really need as climbers. So that is probably one of my favorite things to do with the putty. I keep a little dollop like this in my car, right by my e-brake, and I'll reach down and I'll just fiddle with it. And you'd be surprised if you go climbing and you're exhausted and you go home and you're driving home and you're fiddling with this, you may not even be tired. It may just be a fun game and you're not even pumping out doing it. So just getting in there and definitely working on both sides. Your dominant hand is going to be a lot stronger than your non-dominant hand. I'm left-handed, so I really should be doing a lot of putty stuff on the right side, because that hand doesn't get used nearly as much as my left side. So I do see lots of injuries in the non-dominant side trying to climb to the strength that you can do with your dominant side. Very, very common. So there is the putty squeezing. And then another one that I love to do, grabbing all our pieces of putty together. First we'll warm them up, so we'll get in there and twist it. And then what we can do is kind of pillow that putty, and we can stick our fingers in there. So making sure if you have really hard putty, this may be too difficult for you to do without really stretching it out so that you don't hurt yourself. So I've made just a really broad, flat shape with my putty, and now I'm sticking my fingers in it and I am opening them up. So going in and working the back of your hand. Some people use rice buckets for this. Fill a bucket with rice and open and close the hand. That works well for opening, but closing you don't have that much resistance. But this guy, that provides as much resistance as I want it to. So I can either thin out that putty and make it really light on the resistance, so really pinching it like pizza dough and making it soft so I don't have to work as hard. Or I can bunch it up and make it much firmer resistance. So provide yourself with playtime and play with putty a couple times a week. It's something that's very affordable and non-toxic. If your dog eats it, they're not going to die. And it's something that you can always share with your climbing buddy. So if you have done a bunch of this stuff and you're feeling like you have the strength in there, then maybe rip off a little bit for a buddy for them to keep in their car so that they can squeeze it between the fingers and do all those exercises that we were discussing. So that is hand putty. We do have it for sale on the website at climbinginjurysolved.com. You can also find it at your local climbing shop, and hopefully they have some at your gym. If not, you might ask them if they would pick some up, because it is a really nice self-care item. And the goal with the putty is that we are strengthening these areas so that they're less prone to injury. By strengthening up the hand, we provide stability for what our fingers are doing. So a strong hand decreases the rotational load. It helps to stabilize that hand from any counter rotation and decreases all the forces that go into your finger. So a lot of your tendons are going to last longer because you're using putty, and your injury load is much lower. So fun little toy to play with. Hope you enjoyed.